All right, day 2 of the European semifinal has come to a close. Um, Spent the day over at the LDLC Arena again, watching some of the best in Europe get after it. For the teams, this was the last day of competition, and once again, we'll start with the teams because we're going to end up talking about obviously what the individuals did today, and then setting up what is going to be a completely crazy and awesome day tomorrow for sure. Um, let's see. Huh, interesting. Interesting. Just messing around with them settings there. Sorry. Um, anyway, we're going to kind of get straight into it. I wanted to start today by looking at some of the stuff that with the teams that was going on. So yesterday, it's not right. Yesterday, put up some. Actually, we'll go back to the beginning of before the competition started. These are the teams that I had predicted to do well on the course of the weekend. C23, Prestanda, Walleye, Fleck, PSL, Riz, Traincut, and Porty were the teams that I picked to make it to the games. And then coming into yesterday, we had some kind of predictions here for the specific events. So I thought that Kreiger, Walleye, and Porty may do well on the opening workout. C23, Prestanda, and Riz may do well on the closing workout today. And there's kind of were two sort of battles developing on the team side of things. The first workout had the overhead squats and the rowing, this format that CrossFit has programmed in the past where it's the same volume of work for pair 1 as pair 2, but as the, I think I have the teamwork, the individual up here, workouts up here. Let's put the teams in. But the first group had to do them in sections, 3 rounds for time, 30 and 30, and then the last group had to do all 90 straight out the gate or to finish it out. And it was a pretty fun workout. I think there were some different strategies for the different teams. Like we talked about last night, whether Christoph Horvath would be, how he'd be feeling after the hip. And we thought that he may come out first with Mia Hesketh potentially, and that she could, take a burden off of him with the squatting. But it actually ended up being the inverse. Elliot and Jamie Simmons went out first. They had a nice, really good performance on the 3-rounder, and then Christoph and Mia came in second. And they did great. Christoph looked fine. He squatted pretty well. For the PSL team, Vestlemoy Kolstad and Ingrid Tandel also did great on the overhead squats. But Prestanda, they were trailing both those teams after the first half, and then Alexander Ilebro and Lisa Anderson, this woman that I've been getting to know this weekend, passed both them by as a second pair, and went on to win the workout and kind of put themselves in a pretty good position to win the competition overall. The top 4 teams that we expected were the top 4 teams on that slate, on that workout specifically, and then that Krieger Riz team came in 5th. I see this question from Julian. I will get to that later on. Please, if you have any questions at all, whatever they're about, athletes, observations, things you want to know, throw them in the chat. I'm going to mark them down. Jeff, I see that question too. I'm going to I'll bring those up as it makes sense within the flow of kind of the structure of the show tonight. The teams, I want to just get through the teams first early on and congratulate the ones that made it to the games. So we'll kind of cruise through that so there was a race for the podium. Prestanda kind of put a grip lock on the top spot, and then it was Walleye Orca. They, I think their weekend changed when that injury happened to Christoph during the lifting. I think it turned out not to be too serious of an injury. At least it didn't look that way on the competition floor. For me, the perspective was now just survive, get to the games by any means, and they did that. They actually looked really good. Once we see the teams that qualified, I'll talk just briefly about what I think their potential is. And then there was this pretty tight battle for the 3rd spot on the podium. Originally, I thought it was just going to be between 2 teams, but it ended up being even closer than that. And as I headed into the final, that battle was certainly interesting. And then on the cut line, there were also a pretty close race, and CrossFit Holistic had the advantage there. They were being chased down by some experienced teams in AOD and Gemer, who is from the Netherlands. AOD is from the UK. And basically, when you get to a semifinal and you get to the final workout, some things just go out the window because the season is on the line. And so if you watch those heats they didn't actually reseed the teams prior to the final heat. So Jemer had a little bit of a disadvantage there, having to go in heat 2 of 3 rather than in the final, even though they were inside the top 10 at that point. It's always, it's always a little bit of an advantage to go directly head to head with the people that you're competing with. And yes, Jeff, I'll pull up the team leaderboard here in a second. And then in the final, they had in the final heat, a couple of the teams just really had to go for it. And like I said, the holistic team, I'm going to just switch over to the teams. I was looking at the women just before coming on here. The holistic team was holding on to that 8th spot, and so they know that they have to fend off. The AOD team was actually in 9th heading into this one, and they both came out swinging. AOD took the lead right from the beginning. Yeah, team leaderboard there for you guys. And then everyone's trying to chase them down. It was actually a pretty fun final. If you take out the equation of the game spots and podium spots, there was just a good race on the competition floor, actually, with many teams kind of jostling for position throughout the 4-rounder. The workout itself that we had up there before, I think it was fun, but maybe it was, I think a lot of teams were asking questions about the muscle ups. It was only 20 total muscle ups per athlete. They were synchro and pairs, but only 5 at a time throughout the workout, considering that they had to do double the volume of ring muscle ups in the quarterfinal. It seemed a little bit interesting. I know that some people had asked about the handstand walking, only having that 48 feet, but at least in that one, they already had been holding the worm, which would tax the shoulders. So it made potentially the handstand walk a little more challenging. However, they only had 12-foot sections to do unbroken. And at the top level of this sport, I think that the expectation has risen a little bit for all the athletes, including the teams who I've been talking about for a couple of days now, are really, really good athletes and quite talented. So maybe a little bit more gymnastics could have been prevalent there in the final. But either way, it created a dramatic race. And we can see here, if we sort by the final, Butcher's Lab Chaos out of the first heat actually ended up taking the win, which didn't end up affecting anything on the leaderboard because they didn't middle anyone. BLST surged in the last round. They were not in the top spot in that heat, and they ended up coming ahead of Jemer, who needed all the points they could possibly get. Jemer was in that previous heat also, like I mentioned. They took 3rd, and then AOD came in, putting the pressure on Holistic, but you see Holistic right here, only finishing 2 seconds behind them. So those teams were really selling out because there was much more on the line for them than these teams that came in after the fact, where Krieger, Riz, Fleck, and if you go down a little further, Walleye Orca, and even down here with C23 and then PSL that had their worst finish of the weekend, 19th. Like they were second, first, and first, 13th, and then 19th. Those teams just needed to not make any mistakes. And so maybe it wasn't a great workout for them. Maybe there was a conservative effort. But at the end of the day, CrossFit Holistic does get the job done. And if we sort by overall, hopefully this works. Sometimes it's a little strange on the game spot. What that leaves us with is that Holistic gets the last spot in. And so these are the 8 teams going to the CrossFit Games. Throughout the weekend, we've been mentioning that this team, the C23 CrossFit Program Motion team, it has a Spanish flag, but it has no Spanish athletes. It has 3 Swedish athletes and 1 guy from the UK, and Harrison Bell. And so if we just imagine that that's a Swedish flag, then we see Scandinavia taking all 8 spots to the CrossFit Games this year. 4 Swedish teams, 3 Norwegian teams, 1 Danish team. And the takeaway is that the road to the CrossFit Games, if you're a team in Europe, is going through Scandinavia. This group of athletes, I mean, the Walleye Orca team is based out of Finland. It's Mia Hesketh, but Christoph Horvath's from Hungary, Elliot Simmons is from the UK, and Jamie Simmons is from New Zealand. So clearly, that's not exactly a Swedish team, but they're training out of there. But it's a pretty stout group of Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish athletes that are on these teams, and they're more or less dominating the competition here in terms of the teams in Europe. It was a little, Jemer missed the games last year by 1 spot. They were CrossFit Nijmegen, and they missed it by 1 spot again. They had a really good last day. Last night I talked about that. I thought they might, but it just wasn't enough to close the gap. Holistic, they competed 2 years ago. I think they have three of the same four members returning, and they had a really solid day as well. And it was just overall a little bit better than Gemer, but that's really tough. You know, they had 10 teams in Europe last year. This year they only get 8. They were 11th last year. This time they're 9. So I think really difficult for Gemer right there. And then AOD, you know, they just didn't get it done on the fourth workout, the first one today. They needed to be a little bit better there. They were really good on the final. And so those end up being kind of the teams that just come up short and that, you know, in the system we had last year would have made it. Butcher's Lab Chaos had a strong finish after that one workout in the beginning with the running being bad, 9th, 11th, 9th, and 1st. And there was a huge drop off after that, it turned out. So those are the teams that were just on the outside looking in. And we get these 8 teams going to the CrossFit Games. The last thing that I will say about the teams was the teams what you expected. I didn't see any of them. Yeah, so Prostranda, Walleye, PSL, Fleck, and Riz and Program Motion were 6 of the 8 teams that I picked to go. BLST and Holistic I did not have in my top 8, but very good teams, obviously. BLST I would say was the surprise of the weekend. But look at how tight it was. 77 to 60, 377 to 360, 17 points, 3rd through 7th. Yeah, the time zone was brutal. It's the competition started here at 9 a.m. every day, and that's midnight in the west. That's 3 a.m. in the east coast. So can't expect everyone to get up for that. But pretty competitive amongst those teams, and then you know Prostranda and Orca pulling away a little bit. I would say at the games, Prostranda and Walleye Orca are the 2 teams that have the most likely podium aspirations. This Riz team down here, if it's games programming like we've seen in years past for teams, I think that they're probably the next best bet to maybe push for a podium, have a top 5 type finish. And then, you know, some of these other teams, I think they will improve as they go. I know that there's a few really young athletes on the BLST team. The PSL team, if the programming shifts, since majority of it's going to be indoors, it seems that could be advantageous for them. But I have been saying all weekend long that I think it's possible that we see 5 teams from Europe in the top 10 at the games, and I think that all of these teams have the potential to finish in the top half. You know, winning the games, I don't know. I still want to see how, you know, the Invictus team does, how the Peak 360 team does in that kind of format. But yeah, pretty. The competition was fun, but at the end of the day, these teams were just kind of the class of the field, the majority of them, and the drama was a little bit less than I thought it would be on the final day for the teams. I don't think there's that much else on the team side of things to necessarily talk about. So let's shift our attention to the individuals. And keep in mind that today we had 2 workouts. Yesterday we had 1 workout, and we're only at the halfway point for the individual competition. A lot can still happen. And so coming into the day, these were some picks that I was looking at. If you didn't see these on there, and then, you know, a lot of these are some big names anyway, but these were the athletes I was looking at that were further down the leaderboard, so outside of the top 20, and that I thought may make a big move today. Yonakoski was in 34th, Hoffer was in 30th, Benito was in 28th, Gluck was outside the top 20, Fuliana was maybe just barely inside, I think, and Helga Daughter was down there below 20s as well. And so we're going to see whether that ended up happening or not today. They had 2 workouts. Congrats on your Asia picks on Heat 1, Brian. I don't think it's... the teams are over. Yes, the teams are over, and the KT Kalashnikov team went. But, you know, the individuals are still going. The Russian men are doing great. Sahara and Sungyang Choi are doing great. And then the 3 women that are battling for the 5th spot, Anastasia, Dawan Zhang, and Evie Hollis. But it's not the deepest field over there. And I have some familiarity with a lot of those athletes. So, but thanks, Jeff. I'll mark this about Yella's rope climbs. Jake Chapman is here, so we should have some insights and entertainment for sure, which is great. All right, let's take a look at the workout first of all. The first workout this morning for the individuals. the men started things off, and I took quite a few notes this morning because there's just so much talent here. Is basically what it is. Um, and Jonakoski, who's was a favorite to kind of do well this weekend. He's obviously won the Open in the quarterfinals to get here. And we had this workout with double unders, toes to bar, and front squats. He was in the first heat along with Branislav Lenkovic. And man, I think the best way to do this is just to show you guys what the leaderboard looked like coming into the day, because I was, as much as I'm familiar with these athletes, I was just blown away by looking at like heats 2 and heats 3 to start the day. So way down here, if we go down to 31st, these were the athletes from Mikko Liljeroog down that were in the bottom heat. And so you have Jonakoski, you have Branislav Lenkovic, and amongst these guys, you see Jonakoski put up a time of 12:20. And it was kind of like an early benchmark, but it's also a big advantage for the rest of the guys coming up to see someone who's as good as him put up that time and then have this kind of idea in their mind of what needs to be done, especially for those later heats that have 2 more full heats to process that information with their coach, with their team. I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but it's definitely an advantage. Second heat comes out, and Yorgos Karovis just obliterated this workout. I mean, it was really impressive. He was about 30 seconds faster than Yona, and he was leading most of the way. Alex Katoulis ends up coming in 12:16. He was not leading most of the way, and he was on that first heat. Callum Clements had actually made up some ground. He passed a few athletes. He had a little bit of miscommunication with his judge, something like that. I know he did an appeal. I'm not sure if it was granted or not. But he was the only guy in that heat that kind of climbs past a few athletes. And I was wondering after the first heat whether just going out hot from the start would be the key to success on this. Kerevis did that, and it was great. Katoulis played coy a little bit early on, and then chipped away, and right towards the end, he passed up. He passed up a lot of these guys. But 12th down here, Victor Hofer, who came in at 12:25, just outside of Jonas' time. And Hofer actually started a little slow. He surged and then he faded. So over the course of those 12 minutes, if it was a Hofer fan, you saw this kind of up and down. But overall, decent workout. He faded out a little bit, or he took some big set breaks late on the double unders. The Greek must be training toes bar from birth or something. They were pretty good on that, yes. Branislav looked slow on the double unders from what I can see. I'll say this about double unders this season, and I spoke with a couple people today who have actually some younger athletes or newer athletes competing, and starting in the Open this year, I really opened my eyes about how critical the speed of double unders is at the highest level of competition. And again, we saw that today, where the best athletes are just not only going through those unbroken or with a small break, but their cycle rate is, it's like 1 or 2 reps faster per 10, and over the course of 500 double unders, it adds up. The other thing about this workout was that the transitions were critical, and you saw as the heats go on, people were pushing the pace on those more and more. So Kerevis sets the top time there. Katoulis has a good performance, and Victor Hofer. And we come into this third heat, and I was looking at this floor. So this would be Harry, who was in 11th to start the day, down to Sven Jeans. And I thought to myself, as these 10 guys right here took the floor, that I could probably have just spent 5 minutes saying nothing but positive things about every one of these guys. And I was thinking that and looking out there and realizing that there are still 10 more guys to come. And that's just it's awesome, honestly. It's awesome, especially when you look down here and you see a lot of different flags. Representing different parts of Europe, different countries, different levels of experience. And amongst these guys, Michał Wasilowski out of Poland, who is a gem of a human being. He's a father of 2. He's hilarious. He's chiseled, just like Braun is. These guys are like stone statues of men. He didn't lift weights for 2 or 3 months prior to the Open because of an injury he was dealing with. He said he started finally feeling healthy a couple weeks ago. And this was one of maybe the most impressive performance I've ever seen from him. His toes to bar were phenomenal. He was unbroken on those. He was people were collapsing across the finish line. He was smiling at the end of the workout. He was celebrating. He was just having a great time. I think he just loves life in general. And it was cool to see him have that. Obviously, didn't have the same experience on the next workout, but a very cool moment for Michał there. I hope that his family and his community back home got a chance to to watch that and to celebrate him. Besides him, we see ninth place here from Harry Lightfoot. So he comes in at 12:18, and there was a big group of guys that finished right in that time domain. And Aniola Kai, not a little bit further behind, but ends up being relatively similar on placing, 12:41. Moritz Fiebig, 12:43. Moritz is just consistent. Aniola, another, I think, solid performance for him. And this actually was, here's BKG at 12:46. So this is the type of thing that I look at. 13th, 14th, 16th, 5 seconds or 4.5 seconds maybe between these through 3 guys. And Aniola sneaks those points there. So he gets the 64 points, whereas BKG gets 55 points. So it's a 9-point advantage to him relative to BKG, and Moritz comes in at 61. There's these points drops that are a little bit different. It's a 3-point drop there, and then it goes to a 6-point drop. You can't obviously don't know that at that point, but those extra 9 points, those extra 3 points, come the end of the weekend. Those are the little details that I always take note of. Mr. Friend, are the lane lines pre-printed or are they tape once the floor is down? The lane lines pre-painted. Are they tape once the floor is down? Why does Mario just keep calling me? The white lines on the floor are like fixed, and then when you see the red and the yellow, I'm not sure if they had any other different colors, but they take those up and retape. We're retaping them between events. They have some smaller breaks between teams and individuals, and then they have like an hour break in the middle of the day. And I think that that's all part of the logistics and planning that goes into it. Interesting question. But yeah, obviously on site, you could see that and probably not otherwise. So they are retaping those for different events during the course of the day. So then the top 10 guys take the floor. Here they are with Uldis coming in with the win yesterday. Nika Mazeradze, or Nico as he prefers. Mazeradze was in an outside lane in the final heat, and Mark Carmona, relative unknown in the other outside lane. And then a bunch of guys that are really, really good. And we see here, if we look at event 2, Uldis and Luka Vuniak end up finishing just under 2 seconds apart from each other. I actually think Luka Vuniak would have won this workout. He forgot to advance his bar in the first round, and it cost him probably 5 seconds. He was almost all the way back to the rig. The judges was yelling at him and doing the correct thing, but it's obviously loud. Luka didn't, hesitate. He knew he forgot to do that. He returned and came over there. They're so well done. I've always struggled at my comps. Yeah, it's when you're planning the comp, the floor layout can be challenging. I know JR usually sets a layout for a day, and then they may redo it overnight, and he kind of just picks workouts for the first day that matched what that floor layout is, and then he'll, if he needs to, redo it for the second day. Sometimes he does that, sometimes not. Anyway, so Vuniak and Jukic go. Uldis ends up first and first. Vuniak goes a third and a second. Again, that thing I just said about Aniol, now you're looking at Luka Vuniak, and we'll see what happens at the 35th later on. And those points could be precious, right? The first place gets 100, second place 97, and so those 3 points for Luka, Aniol, he earned them. Moritz, he charged pretty hard at the end of that workout too, but the small seconds, small margins, and the cut line is going to be tight for some of these athletes for sure. Great workout here for Hapalainen. He had told me before the day that he was expecting to have a great day. And look, he's basically been great across the board, 8th, 5th, and 7th. Yellow Hoste, if you were watching the workout, did not cross the line at 11:53. He crossed the line around 12:19, very similar with Bossard. I had been jotting down some notes on my paper, and then when I looked at the leaderboard later and I saw this, I was perplexed and confused. He appealed. Henrik is Mr. Consistent so far, absolutely, Lynn, and that is usually a good thing. Henrik had appealed for doing extra double unders, and I have talked to a couple of people about this. Apparently, they credit him with doing 70 extra double unders in the workout. They did have fixed cameras on the double under lane that was behind the rig, and so there was someone who went back and reviewed this, but I have no idea how during the course of this workout, the communication between him and his judge allowed for him to do 70 extra double unders. And I think he was credited 27 seconds. I had him around 12:19, so 26, 27 seconds, something like that extra. And if we can just sort by event 2 really quick so we can see that 12:18, 12:19, so he would have been 9th or 10th, and it bumps him up to 6th. It bumps him past Lazar Jukic and Alex Catoulis, so he gets on 85 points instead of, let's just say he was ninth, 76 points, or if he was eighth, 79 points. Either way, he's gaining 6 to 10 points. But also Lazar and Alex are losing those points. And Alex, Catoulis, he's been close to making it before and hasn't. And if we look here, Luka and Lazar are both tied on 267 points, with Yella having the advantage based on this first place that he's going to get later in the day. So those are huge. That's a huge decision. We have to, of course, trust the scoring team and the review team. This is what I was hearing. Yeah, 70, no way. I don't know. It was really surprising to me. Some of the athletes were, very surprised by it as well. They were asking questions. So I'm trying to stay out of the way for the most part here and let everyone do their jobs. I wasn't hired by any part of the competition or the broadcast or anything like that. So I don't have all the access that I usually have, but just in conversations, that's what I had heard. And I don't know. I think, obviously it impacts the leaderboard. So hopefully they got this right and that it is an accurate reflection of the work that he did. I guess if they're awarding that, it's within the rules of something that he's allowed to appeal. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. I haven't been at the briefings. I haven't been able to go to those, so I don't exactly know what is or isn't allowed in certain cases. I'm just kind of getting third-hand information, second or third-hand information. So end of the day, here were the kind of top performers here. I thought that this was once again a really great performance for Harry Lightfoot. I was impressed with him on the run yesterday. I was impressed with him this morning, and I'm starting to have some real belief in Harry's chances to make the games this year. Colin Bossard, impressive again. He's a smaller dude, but he managed the clean and jerks really well to edge out a couple people on the first workout. He did not give away anything on the front squats, and he was pretty good here as well. And then Yonakoski, this was huge for him. I think he bumped from 34th all the way up to 21st, 13 spots in one workout. Victor Hoffer jumped up from 30th to 20th after that workout. And on the other side, we had some guys go in the wrong direction. I had mentioned Nika Maizaradze and Mark Carmona, who were in that final heat. And so Mark Carmona ends up taking last there. He dropped down to in the mid 20s at that point. And Maizaradze, he had a decent performance, but dropped out of the top 10 for sure. I think we'll stick with the men and just kind of finish the day for the men before going to the women. So let me see if there's any questions over here about the guys. Not really yet. There's something about the rope for Yella, so we'll get to that one in a minute. EKG better pull through tomorrow. Okay, so let's look at event 3. This was a cool workout. We'll pull the workout up real quick just to remind you guys of what it was. Whoops. Seven rounds on this one. So we had the 5-rounder, and then 7-rounder, 10 cal echo bike, 1-legless rope climb, 10 box jump step downs, 1-legless rope climb, except for in the last round. Just I think after you watched it play out, you understood why, because they were so far away from the rig. It may have been a little silly to go all the way back there to run back just for the flow of the workout. And it feels like the flow of the workout has been a priority for them, because in both the double unders and the echo bike, they had them behind the rig, which I don't really love from a viewership perspective. I mean, you're doing 500 double unders there. You're on the bike for 5 rounds or 7 rounds, excuse me, of 10 calories. And so for a certain amount of time in each of those workouts, you're behind this big metal thing. And it's nice. People want to see the athletes, whether it's in person, on the broadcast, on the ESPN Plus, which they announced that they had a partnership with ESPN Plus late last night. We got some information about that, which is kind of cool. Told you Luka called his shot for event 3 and he delivered. Did they change it the same in Asia? I actually don't know. I haven't been watching much of what's going on in Asia. Patrick's covering stuff over there, and I intend to catch up with him and find out. But I haven't. If anyone watched or happens to know that, feel free to chime in. But I'm not sure. Yeah, Luka had an amazing performance there. So let's take a look at the leaderboard, and I'll give you guys some thoughts. I think so. We can just start. We'll just look at event 3, and then we'll look at the overall. Yellow Host Day. Interesting about Yellow Host Day. From what I heard here, regardless of the no rep on the rope climb scenario or not, he kind of backed off relative to what he had practiced and what I think he was capable of doing here, and specifically on the bike. He had a number in mind, and he was holding it in the first couple of rounds, and he realized that no one was really matching it. So he just kind of did what was needed to be done to win the workout. In the meantime, Luka Jukic was pretty much flawless in this workout. Just like in the first workout, he's looked controlled and poised early on, and then he passed some people up later as the workout wore on. And he's had now a really up and down kind of competition. Fourth, 34th, second. I thought that event 2 would be the biggest challenge for him, but I didn't think he would have a 34th. But if you're going to have a 34th, this is what you have to do, is balance it out with workouts that are in that top 5. We've spoken about it a lot, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more when we start previewing tomorrow. Because there are still some other athletes that have a chance to have a scorecard at the end of the day that looks like this in terms of results, and put themselves into contention for game spots. So great workout there. He actually ends up passing by his brother in the last round. Annual Akai was in a previous heat. And while I commended Annual for this, edging out those points there, I'd have to go back and watch. I'm not sure how casual he was or how aggressive he was getting across the line, but 3.35 seconds there. And again, that's a small number of points, but it could come down to small margins. Look at this. Anil's in 7th, Luka's in 9th. So he earns some extra points here by a small margin. He gives away a couple here. And this is like when I'm watching anybody, any heat, any position, like you've done so much work to get to that point, 9 minutes and 23 seconds of work. Sprint across the line, like get there and don't leave any doubt. And so pretty tight. Both did great. Both needed to do great, I would say, and set themselves up in good position for tomorrow. Harry Lightfoot continues to impress me. I mentioned it on the shorter versions of the lives I was doing on Instagram earlier today. Look at this, 11th, 9th, 4th. He's getting better. We're going to see some other guys that are going in the other direction. But for Harry Lightfoot, really, really putting himself in a solid position and giving the UK a chance to get a male athlete to the games this year. Lazar, doing what Lazar does. He said these first 3 workouts would be good for him. No event wins, but solid across the board. Colin Bossar, we mentioned earlier, really solid, and Henrik Epelainen. So we have this group of guys right here, Harry, Lazar, Colin, and Henrik, who have been super consistent, and lo and behold, they're all sitting in the top 5. Yella as well. So that top 5 guys has been really, really good so far. Fernando Geneza, if you do not know Fernando Geneza, he's a capacity. Most of Europe was walking across the line. I think they forgot. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Like, I understand wanting to soak it in, celebrate with the crowd, get that cheer, but the job's not done. Get across the line and celebrate those things after the fact. So Fernando Geneza, I think great performance for him here. Let's see what happens on the snatch tomorrow. I don't know if he can snatch 265. I think 245 may even be a good snatch for him. And there's some pretty strong guys in the field. Moritz, he's been getting better every time, but it's just been worse than those other guys. He's still on the outside looking in. Michael Smith, just like Luka, good, not as good, and then decent, but not as good as Luka, and he's really close to him on the leaderboard in 10th. Guillaume Briand and Sven Jeans putting in some solid work here to keep themselves relevant in the conversation. So overall, let's take a look at the overall standings here. At the end of the day, we have Yella and Luka tied up top. We got Henrik right where we'd expect them to be. Bosshard, I would say, is doing phenomenal so far. Same with Lightfoot. This was not as good as I thought it would be. These were a little better than I thought they would be. I was most concerned about Wildis on the snatch. In most of the competitions that he competes in, they get 10 correct. Yes. Did one guy not cross the line in a third heat? Chase said he stopped short. I don't know if it was the third heat or the final heat. There was one guy that he just walked across the line in one workout. Like I think it was Mark Carmona actually. He walked across the line like extremely slowly. I did not understand that. And it cost him easily 5, maybe 10 seconds. Maybe he didn't even cross. I don't know. But I was like, I was flabbergasted. Like, I don't know. You just got to finish strong. And at this level, it's so hard to get here. These guys are so good. That detail should just not be an issue. Event 3 seemed to be a tall person event. It did seem to be a tall person event. We can just sort it real quick. Hosta obviously is super tall. Jukic is about 6 feet. Angel is about 6 feet. Harry's not. He's like 5'9". Lazard's about 6 feet. Colin is not. Henrik is. Janez is about 5'10". Mort's about 5'10". Michael Smith is probably 6'1". Guillaume's about 6 feet. Sven's about 6 feet. PKG's normal size. Louis is about 6 feet. Zanoni and Hoffer, Tulis are all 5'10" or shorter. So I don't know. Maybe it's yeah, but also like maybe just the best guys in Europe are just tall. So let's see, and we'll look at the women's side and we'll see something a little bit different there. These two workouts today, I really liked them. You had in the first workout, like you definitely had to be good on the toes to bar. I felt like it was a separator. However, if you didn't, yeah, exactly. Like most of the EU field is tall on the men's side and some of the women's side. Willis and Luca V struggled. Yeah, they did struggle, and we'll get to that. We just mentioned it about well, this we didn't even get to Luca, but I'm going to look at him here in a second. U.S. is where the men are shorter. EU is tall men. Yes and no. There's it just seems to be some tendencies towards the tall guys in CrossFit recently. And there are still some shorter guys that are extremely impressive. Okay. Yeah. So then will this? Let's see. I think the snatch is going to be tough for him. Same with Luka Vuniak tomorrow. Relative to the field they're competing against. Anjola Kai, Luka Jukic, Michael Smith, we mentioned earlier, I think did great stuff for themselves today, putting themselves in relevant positions. Specifically, these finishes by Anjol and Luka Jukic, keeping themselves in a spot where they can feel confident for tomorrow. Smith, talked about him yesterday. This is just cool to see that he's in the mix and relevant, even though he's not necessarily training for this stuff the same way all these guys are. I think Geneza will slide back a little tomorrow. And when I go down the leaderboard here, I would probably draw a line here under Sven Jeans at 19 as the guys that I think are still relevant to make the CrossFit Games. Nico Mazeradze is only 6 points behind Sven. I've been impressed with him in terms of his fitness, but I think he just lacks some competition experience, which was expected. He's as far as I know, the Eurasia Throwdown and now this semifinal are his first two live competitions. And I mean, he was in the final heat today with some of the best guys in the world. And he didn't look necessarily too out of place. 29th and 22nd, like he can be here and definitely can compete, but I don't know if he's going to have enough when you look at all these guys ahead of him that are just like so much more experienced than he is. Sven Jeans and Victor Hoffer, I think the workouts tomorrow are really, really good for them. We'll preview those workouts at the end of the show. And all of these guys up here, I still think are in the conversation to fight for a CrossFit Games spot tomorrow. Let me see if I missed anything in terms of the men. We did Yella's rope. Did Yella's rope descent look as sketchy in person as it did on the stream? Maybe you're talking about. I don't know if you're talking about a specific one or in general. And I don't know. I'm not really actually sure what you're asking. There was no rule for the descent. You could drop from the top as some people were. You could be more calculated and careful coming down as some people were. So apologize, Sarah. I'm not sure on that one. And yeah, I've bookmarked some of these other comments, so we'll get to them in a little while. All right. Talk of a stacked field. I mean, the top 20 so far are games viable with their performances. Yep, absolutely. Which is kind of what we're projecting here, and we kind of know that. But it's all. I mean, the crowd and the environment and the venue is amazing. I think the workouts are extremely exciting, and tomorrow is going to be so freaking cool. All of them, he almost let go right from the top. Didn't notice anyone else doing it. Oh, there were definitely some people doing it. I mean, I know that not everyone doing, like, the field spreads out a little, and so maybe not every rope climb was seen. But he's also he's also 6'3", and when he reaches, he has like a 2.5 foot reach ahead of him. So if that's 8.5 feet from the bottom of his feet to where he's touching the ground, or then 8 feet or something, he's only dropping like 2-3 feet. Well, I guess he's dropping like 7 feet from the ground. So it's like, but I'm sure he's practiced it. It is interesting. There's no mats down there at all. A lot of competitions will try to put some kind of mat out there. I know even in Greece last week, there were some mats underneath all 32 lanes on the rig, and some of the athletes really appreciated that. And obviously, we saw Rebecca Vidison, which we'll get to in a little while. So something to be considered, I guess. But no rule on the set, so that's at the mercy of the athletes to make that decision for themselves. All right, let's flip over to the women's side. Pull up my notes for women's event 2. And again, let's sort by event 1 so we can see kind of what the day looked like coming in. So way down here at the bottom, this was the first heat of women getting out after it today. And in the first workout, nothing really to stand out in this heat. Martina Barini, one of 3 Italians in this heat, ends up setting the top time, 13:39, but it wouldn't really be competitive the rest of the way. Holly Tynan was in 30th at the start of the day. Margot Masset was in 21st. And now we saw, so if we remember, back over here, Claudia Gluck, one of the athletes that I thought was going to have a good performance today. And my goodness, did she. 3rd place and 6th place. She sets a really fast time of 11:40. I mentioned it on the live stream earlier. I don't think that being in the final heat would have allowed her to catch Laura and Gabby, who end up taking 1st and 2nd here. But while a lot of people in the men and women's side were really looking to be laboring coming across the finish line, she did not. She was smiling, gave a heart to the crowd, waved, accepted the applause, and this was, front squats in Claudia Gluck, really good. Gymnastics in Claudia Gluck, really good. Double under proficiency was high and evident in watching this. There's a reason why I picked her to finish around 7th, I think, and that's one of the reasons. The rest of the women in the heat did nothing, again, too substantial. Turi Helgadottir, who was also on this list that I had talked about, as someone who might improve today. I heard she may or may not be feeling as 100% healthy, but she loves competing. She's out there giving her best, and she had her best finish of the weekend already right here, 15th place. So hope she's all right. Hope she can put up a fight tomorrow, but she's still down in 27th, so she didn't really make that jump up that I was hoping for her today. So she's probably out of the games conversation. But doesn't mean that we won't see something cool from her tomorrow. She's an Olympic weightlifter, so maybe we'll see a good snatch workout. Who knows? So Gluck with the top time there, and then Elisa Fuliano, who was the 3rd woman that I was looking at today to make that move up the leaderboard. She comes out and puts in what ends up being a 5th place performance, 12:07, and there was a decent gap between her and Solberg at 12:30 and Emma McQuaid at 12:36. 3 experienced athletes, 3 women who are still absolutely in the games conversation. And 3 good performances here. So we got some good times on the board, but nothing better than Claudia Gluck. And then the last heat of women takes the floor. And I mean, it's a really strong field of women in this final heat. Gabby was the leader to start the day. She ends up taking 2nd on this workout. She was pretty sneaky in it, sneaking up from behind several people. She couldn't catch Laura Horvath. I said may have a chance to win all 5 of these workouts. She wins this one right out the gate today. And then Laura comes 2nd. It was a nice performance from Amy Kringle once again. And I mentioned it earlier, I really think Amy Kringle, the improvement that she's made from last year to this year is palpable. It's notable. I'm going to mark just a couple of these comments down. PFA might have something to say about the mats. I'm sure they do. Turi was a surprise. Hope she feels better. Yes, absolutely. I thought Muir beat Horvath in event 3. We'll get to that. I'm going to bookmark that one second here, Doyle. Amy Kringle, only athlete to not have a finish outside of the top 5. Yeah, she's been phenomenal. Amy Kringle is so much better this year. I mean, wow. What's up, Craig? Yeah, so Amy comes out. Really, it's not just the finishes. It's the way that she's going about having these finishes. She looks super composed. She looks super efficient in her movement. She's aware of what's going on the floor, but still running her own race, and she's having really nice consistency across the board. So Amy Kringle, really nice. Emma Tall, another solid finish, 8th place there. Jacqueline Dahlstrom, who we're looking at to see if she is getting worse with each workout, but she's still doing very well and looks good out on the floor, looking to bounce back from last year. Elena Karatala also had a nice workout right here. She went out really hot on this and ended up sliding quite a bit of ways back, but still salvages her 2nd straight top 10 finish. And then Miriam van Roer, 9th and 11th, so averaging a 10th place finish through 2 workouts, which is great for a rookie out there. Karen Frey, who's a veteran and maybe someone who has podium aspirations or expectations here, and through 1/3 of the test, Miriam was ahead of her at that point. Connie Easby, nice start there. She's a young athlete. I know that Lauren Smith did a hit on her on the broadcast. 20 years old. 3 years ago, was a completely different human being in a different place in her life. And then Rebecca Vittison, who we'll talk about probably in the next workout. Emma McQuaid, nice performance there. So that sets up for the finale tonight. And Emma Tall was incredible on this workout. Karen will absolutely do well in the snatch. We're going to preview tomorrow here pretty shortly. So Emma Tall, phenomenal. Actually, let's look at this again. So we come back down here because I wanted to show Francie Hogar. Yeah, so this was the heat. And so Francie Hogar comes out. She's a really good upper body puller, and she had a great workout here. Ends up with a top 10 finish. It probably will be her only top 10 finish of the weekend. She's one of the older athletes in the field, 30 years old. I guess there's a bunch of them over 30. One of the best in Germany. And a nice workout for her. I met her at the in Finland competition, Turku Tuomiopäivä last year. Great human being, and nice to see her have a good score there. In the next heat, there were again some good scores. None better than Claudia Gluck, who comes in 11:51 and through the first half of the competitors. And this one sets the time to beat. Holly Tynan was hot on her heels for most of it, but faded a little bit towards the end. Julia Jakobsen got out to a really fast start, but ended up not being able to hold on in the last 3 rounds. And Norcha Bleeker kind of had the opposite, where she was climbing her way through there a little bit. She couldn't quite catch Margot Massette, who had her best finish up to that point. If you're watching the stream, she was in the pink shirt, pink lipstick, beautiful woman out of France, really nice person, and it was cool to see a good finish from her there. So Gluck, once again, time to beat as we head into the top 2 heats. And in the second heat here, I was wondering how Fuliano and Solberg would do. And they ended up doing very similarly, 17th and 18th overall, but not nearly as good as Claudia Gluck, which ended up kind of being the difference when we see where they end up at the end of the day. Instead, veteran Emma McQuaid, who I think is 13th, 7th, 8th so far she's on. I think she's going to have a good season this year. And Linda Cashman, really showing some consistency here. She was not that far away from making the games last year. She's been knocking on the door for a few seasons now. 30 years old, out of the Netherlands, and she's 16, 12, 10. She's getting better as they go. She's pretty strong, so snatch could be a good workout for her. The row, handstand walk, that lack of technicality on the handstand walk is probably advantageous for her. She's a good rower, and upper body pulling is decent. So that finale, the lunge and bike should be no issue. So Linda Kieschman is a sneaky pick right there at 10th to maybe hang on to a game spot. And then we got the final heat. And so in this one, Emma Tall goes out hot. She actually beat 12 of the 12 of the men on this workout, which the Lagos roll climbs and the bike were exactly the same. The only difference was the height of the box jump. And I mean, that's a great performance. A really like world-class performance from Emma Tall. Karen Frey was pretty much second the entire way. Laura Horvath was in a battle. This was where things were getting tight with her, Muir, Kringle, and even Gabby was like sneaking up and messing around with them a bit. And then Claudia Gluck's time filters in there. So what I understand is, because at the end of the workout, yes, this is a great question. I'm going to bookmark this and get to it later on. At the end of the workout, Muir and Horvath were going rep for rep on the box jumps. And everyone saw what happened. I mean, Laura got a no rep, same as Miriam von Rohr got a no rep at the end for jumping off of the box. You have to step down on the box. And it's really hard to judge. A couple of the judges got booed today on the competition floor for making calls with the last athlete on the floor when all of the spotlight was on them for depth of the squat. Some of the fans were, I think, confused about these no reps for some prominent and popular athletes with the jumping off the box rather than stepping off the box. But being able to, do the job under pressure is a huge challenge. And I think that, in those cases, they did that well. I talked to Miriam von Rohr about it, and she's like, yeah, I just got excited. I was so close to finishing, so I jumped off and I needed to step off, and it cost her a little bit. Where is she at, von Rohr? Oh, she's down here. 13-19, and it cost her at least one spot. and I'm not sure if she would have beat either of these either way, but like those points, like we're talking about now, we're further down the table, and so, well, 3 points gap there still. So Miriam Von Rohr. Anyway, Laura Horvath. She was poised to finish the workout. She didn't get across. Jennifer Muir got across. So you would be thinking that she would be third on this workout. I believe Laura appealed a no rep on a rope climb, and I believe she was credited for that. I also think that, or I have been told that you're not allowed to appeal no reps. So there's definitely an unknown element of what happened there for me. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm just really trying to stay out of the way and let them do their jobs the best that they can. And yeah, but I would say that's a question mark for sure is what happened here. And then what I said is what I've heard. And currently, Laura has the third place spot compared to Jen Weir. For Laura, this is not such really of a big deal because I think she's going to be in a solid game spot either way. Of course, she wants to get credited for the work that she did, and who could fault her for that? But if the rules say that you can't appeal that and then she appealed it and got credit for it, I would be a little bit confused. Jen Weir, on the other hand, gives away a couple points to her. And look, she's sitting in ninth place right now. She's trying to make the Rookie as it games. She had this 25th place performance. She could have used those 3 points for sure. And so if it comes down to it at the end and Jen Weir is on that cut line, on the wrong side of the cut line, this is something that I might take note of. So maybe I'll find out some more information about it, but as of now, that's all that I know. In my humble opinion, Laura's rope climb, I think this is probably meant to be singular. Rope climb was instead of rope climbs were, but either way, I haven't gone back and watched it at all, so I'm not entirely sure. I want to check some of the ones that I starred earlier today. Any word on Vidison's knee? Just give me a second for water. Yeah, I mean, Rebecca Vidison was doing great on that workout. She absolutely looked like she was going to be fighting for a game spot. Otherwise, we did address this one about Muir and Horvath, so hopefully that was helpful, Kevin, or not helpful, but as much as I know. And I mean, obviously, everyone saw what happened to her. Vidison went down by the ropes. The medical team was slow getting out there, too slow, I thought. They helped her up. And I was speaking to some people after the fact because there's this controversy from last season about the Alexander Caron situation. When does the competition step in and say that you're no longer in a safe position to compete? They did that in his case last year, and they were, burned for it in multiple facets. This season, now we have Rebecca Vidison. She gets injured, and someone helped her up. And I think that that's probably a decent indication that, let's see, Chase said medical was from the venue, not from CF. Well, these are CrossFit events. This is the CrossFit European semifinal. So there should be protocols for that. In my opinion, when legless rope climbs are going on, but really at any point, the medical should be at the corners of the venue. This happens at competitions all the time, where the medical should be at the corners of the venue and have an easy access to the floor in case something happens. We know that there can be injuries in this sport. We know that they can be sometimes pretty serious for, it's a risk that people take in sports, and that was pretty slow getting out there. And there, I think, also can be an opportunity for a protocol where once the medical team assists you in any way, your workout is over. And I don't know what's happened with Rebecca Vidison. I know that they took her off the floor. I know that she went to that shouldn't matter. Medical should be available at all times. 100% agree with that. No argument. They should have been way faster. Yeah, I think everyone can agree with that. So they took Vidison to the hospital. I know that her coaches went with her, and her support team went with her. They were doing some imaging. They were evaluating the situation, and I believe that she will make some statements when she's ready about what happened and what's going to happen going forward. My understanding is we will not see her on the competition floor tomorrow, which is good. I think, you don't want to make it any worse than it is, which is unfortunately what I think probably happened because she was allowed to continue on with the workout. Just from a totally experiential perspective, when you hurt your knee, a lot of times you can continue doing things. And a lot of athletes that I've seen in the history of sport that I've been a part of from, a variety of different competitive levels will then do another movement that makes it worse. And I think that, from what I was able to see, that might have been the case with Rebecca Vidison. So I just hope that she's hasn't made it, substantially worse by continuing in that. And I think there's potentially a learning here that once the competition team is actually physically helping you do something, your workout should be over anyway, because you should not be allowed to have assistance in continuing the workout. And if you're laying on the ground and they help you up, then that would be an advantage relative to the rest of the competition, that nobody else had assistance from another human being moving them in any direction. So, and I think if that rule was in place, then she wouldn't have been allowed to continue on the workout, and we wouldn't have had her there in the middle of the floor, potentially making things worse and being also right in the middle of the camera angle. I think that on the replay that the broadcast showed, they had gone wide for the finish, which I like from the perspective of making sure to see everyone cross the finish line, but then to show the replay, which also was right at the point where she re-injured herself, I didn't love that so much. You can bike with an ACL tear, but lateral movements need to be avoided. Yeah, and she was trying to step down, and it just didn't go great. I totally agree. So that's the kind of the Rebecca Vittesen scenario. It's tragic. You never love to see. You just don't like to see stuff like that in competition, but when it's sports, that's how it goes. So that is kind of where we're at the end of the day. I think it was an exciting day of competition, and I think let's just look at the women's overall leaderboard real quick to set up tomorrow. I think maybe we'll stay with the women and then we'll come back to the men. So to start the day tomorrow, these will be the top 10 women in the final heat, and there's 6 points between the top 4. I believe actually, let's take a look. Over here, I had Laura, Gabby, Karen, Emma Tall in the top 4, and Amy Kringle down here in 15th in this group of people. I guess it would be 14th without Sarah Sigmazotter in this group of women that was really between, I'd say, Fuliano and Kishman in 17th, that I was like, this is a group of women that throw them all in a blender, and I think that you're going to get a bunch of games qualifiers from here. Turi Helgadottir is not having a great weekend. Rebecca Vittesen is probably going to be a withdraw. Emily Lundberg is not having a great weekend, but the rest of these women are in the mix. So I feel pretty good about the ability to identify the women on the cut line coming into the weekend. And Amy Kringle has been, I would say, the surprise so far of the weekend on the women's side, looking great. Let's see. Really tough circumstances. Yeah. You think the top 5 women are locked for making the games? Perfect. I think yes. I mean, Amy looks amazing, and the other 4 were the top 4 women, in my opinion, coming in anyway. They've done very well so far, and I think the workouts tomorrow are even better for them collectively as a group than the ones that we've had so far. Karen and Laura are good runners, but they're not the best runners. Karen Frey, decent here with the volume of toes to bar and front squats, and I mean, but look at their finishes. That 13th is the only thing outside the top 10. Her 13th and 10th are the only thing outside the top 8. I mean, this is a different caliber across the board. And I think, like I said, they're going to be really good tomorrow too. Dahlstrom and McQuaid, I also feel really good about them. Picked them both. Let's see where I had them. I had Dahlstrom in 9th. I had McQuaid in 5th. I like their chances a lot to continue in this capacity. Claudia Gluck, who I had in 7th, she's doing very well. Let's see how the snatch goes tomorrow. I think she'll be good on the other 2 workouts. Jen Weir has been really good. I mentioned those couple points because now we're going to look at the cut line. So, McQuaid, Dahlstrom, Frey. I mean, it's really close. Like that's where the drop off is from those top 4 down to here, and from 234. It's 50 points, 54 points down to Miriam Van Roer, Wilkinson. Manu Nangonis is the woman that's the furthest down here that I think still has a reasonable chance to make the CrossFit Games. Easby has been good, but I don't know. Rika Larson, of the women in this top group, she's the one I know the least amount by far. I would love to learn something about her. If there's someone from Denmark there who can help fill me in, maybe Nico's listening, or I should just ask him, honestly. But she's been pretty impressive for someone that I don't know too much about, 27 years old. Ella Wilkinson's been really good, and I've been given a tip that she is a likely candidate for a top 3 finish on tomorrow morning's workout. I have been misspeaking. I believe that the snatch is actually happening 5th and the row handstand is 4th, so I apologize for that. But I've been told by someone who I have high confidence in that Wilkinson is a good pick for the snatch. I mean, for the handstand walking workout. Miriam Von Rohr has been, I mean, obviously people were looking to see how she would do. This was the workout I was most concerned for her about, just because legless rope climb is a, pretty demanding and specific thing to be good at. And she was, she was decent. That workout is just similar to the snatch. It's just like, don't make mistakes, do what you can do, and then move on from it. Where the points fall, they fall. So Miriam Von Rohr, I think, is in the conversation here. She still will have a couple questions to answer. How good is her snatch? The rowing handstand walk, it seems like it should be something she's good at, and the final seems like something that she can be decent at. But there's a lot of talent ahead of her. Fuliano is someone that I picked to make the games. Solberg is having another good competition. She had her best ever competition in Dubai, where she took second in December, and I think she's, kind of elevated herself to be in this group of women. And Elena Karatala, she's getting worse with every event, so we're going to need to see a rebound there. But she looks good to me compared to what she's kind of a high and low athlete, and I still think that she's in the mix. So, Angonis and then Wilkinson on up are the athletes that I think have the best chance to make the CrossFit Games. If I was honestly, if I was betting today, I would say that 9 of the top 10 that are in the top 10 are going to make it, and I think Fuliano will unseat one of them. I'm not sure who it's going to be. I would say it's either going to be Muir or Kishman, and Fuliano are going to be those. I would say 2 of those 3 are going to make it. I think Gluck and above are also going to make it. Now let's see Claudia Snatch. Let me check the comments real quick. Coffee and a chocolate croissant. Mitra, thanks for the breakdown. Hockey calls. All right, enjoy. Oh yeah, some good hockey games going on. Who's the rookie of the semi so far, both male and female? Games rookie of the semi so far. Like, there would be a rookie of the games. Definitely Amy Kringle for the women, and we're going to flip over to the men here in a second. Which French is more likely to make it, Claudia or Victor? I would say Claudia, just because she's already in a good spot, but I do like Victor's, the workouts for Victor tomorrow. So let's look at the men's leaderboard after the day there. No, we'll go back to the women, right? Because we want to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. So workout number 4 tomorrow. This is if you're, especially if you're going to be playing on the Heat One app. These might be some good things to jot down. I'm going to talk about a few different athletes, but I know there was this question earlier that I want to go back to about this. I'm interested to see if this is a row or a handstand workout. All the athletes that I've talked to have told me that this is going to come down to the handstand walking. There is still a decent amount of rowing in the workout, and we have seen some of these athletes have really good scores on the row. We also have this kind of workout from the last chance qualifier a couple years ago in 2022 that was 2,000 meter row directly into handstand walking. And we actually have one woman, Elena Karatala, who did that workout in this field. She took 5th, which is good. About the 20 women were in the last chance qualifier that year. No, there's no disc golf courses anywhere near here, not even in nowhere. It's not maybe Paul Macbeth will build one someday. And then on the men's side, in the last chance qualifier that year, Jona Koski was 4th, Alex Katulis was 9th, Lucas Jukic was 10th, and Fabian Benito was 26th. That's not a good sign for Benito, but the other 3 guys had decent performances. Now, that's just a small sample size from the last chance qualifier, but it's kind of the most closely paralleled workout to what we're going to see. If this is a handstand walking workout, excuse me, I think there's confirmation of this, but actually the athlete briefing is tomorrow morning at 7:15 local time, and until that happens, I don't necessarily want to say for sure what it's going to look like. But I feel like many people have mentioned this to me. I think Baz even talked about it on Spin's show at one point. So yeah, we'll have to see in the morning for sure. And of course, it'll be the only week where there's any questions about that. If it's a handstand walking workout, Victor Hoffer's an amazing choice. Branislav Lenkovic is a great choice. But most of these guys, just for walking on their hands, are going to be really good. I think that similarly to what we saw in the last workout today, the first workout tomorrow, there's going to be a ton of times within 30 seconds of each other. It's a 13-minute cap. I think that, just about everyone's going to finish well under the cap, and we're going to have some Pretty tight finishes. There's a couple nuances that I'm expecting with the workout, which is that you have to stay on your rower until the monitor reads whatever the specific number is. So if you leave early and get called back, and then on the handstand, I don't know why in CrossFit, but everywhere that I go, people kick up and they put their hands on the line, and then they get called back and they get frustrated by it. It's like, kick up 6 inches further back than you think and make sure that your hands are behind the line. You don't want to be getting called back, and make sure that your palms are over the line. Those getting called back could be extremely costly. And I think that execution is going to be at a premium, specifically for those at the cut line. So, yeah, I would say if you're just looking for an outright winner, I actually think Victor, Bronislaw are good picks. Maybe a little, some of the top guys are just going to be good regardless. Lazar, BKG. Very interested to see how Colin Bossard does here. He's been extremely good throughout. Harry Lightfoot, the same thing. I'll be curious to see how he does on this in the morning. And Sven Jeans, maybe a little sleeper pick throughout the day tomorrow. I think these are sneaky good workouts for him. On the women's side, like I mentioned, Wilkinson is supposed to be incredible at this. I think Laura Horvath has a great chance to be towards the top. And then Claudia Gluck, I think, once again, is going to have a really good workout. The best rowers in the field are probably, it's amazing, Jeff, how often that happens. The best rowers in the field are probably Laura Horvath and Karen Frey. Karen Frey is decent on her hands, but she's just a little slow, and over that much distance, if the handstand walk does weigh heavily, could be, not a bad workout for her, but probably not a top 3, top 5. And then, Muir and Kringle, like these two women have clearly put themselves in this conversation. We don't have as much competition data on either of them, but I think that, I think they're going to be in the mix. They're powerful ladies. They've shown to have great capacity over the first 2 days, 3 tests, and I think it would be silly to discount them at this point. Emma Tall has been great, like we said, and I think we'll have another solid workout. I don't think it'll be in the top 3 or 5, but yeah, I think we're seeing on the women's side basically that there is a clear breakdown from like the top 15 to another group of 10 and then to the bottom 15. So I'd expect a lot of high performances from those. And if any of those athletes stumble a bit here, then they're going to need to account for it on the snatch. On the men's side of things, no, we already talked about the men's side of things there. So let's look at the next workout, which is the snatch. And I know that there was a question right when we jumped on the podcast that I addressed actually in a previous podcast, but I'll address it again just in case no one heard that one. So Julia Ifford, Brian, on your podcast, you say someone would get 315 on the snatch ladder. Rich and Matt, I'm guessing that's Matt Fraser with 1T, did it in 6 minutes. Bosman laughed on the Spin podcast when asked about that. Yeah, I did say that, and I did not speak accurately in that regard. I addressed it the other day. I looked at those workouts immediately, or for the first time live on the show, and excuse me, and I was misremembering something from HWPO training camp from the previous year. There was actually 2 snatch workouts that they did that week. I did one of them with them, and then they did this snatch ladder, and the other workout, which was echo bike and snatch. The top scores of the athletes that were there was between 315 and 330, and then I had come in about a minute slower than that. The snatch ladder, they were more in the 515 to 530 mark. Jake Douglas and Katrin Davidsdottir, both very, very fast. And the other athletes that did it were kind of between 6 and 7 minutes. So that is much more realistic and what I meant. And yeah, it was just a mistake. Andrew wanted to make sure that everyone knew that I made a mistake. Those guys asked Bosman that question, probably knowing that he would have a reaction like that, maybe trying to make me feel bad about it. It's okay. Tried to remember something there in the moment and got it wrong. But I think in terms of what you can expect to see tomorrow from the best times, I still think that somebody in the world is going to break 5 minutes on this workout this year. If there was going to be someone here, I would say that it's going to be Laura Horvath, but I don't know if anyone will this weekend. We'll see. And otherwise, I think that the best times will probably be around that 5:30 mark. And then those would be like really, really good snatchers. Bronislaw, maybe Victor Hoffer, maybe Anjola Kai, maybe Moritz Fiebig. They did a 1 rep max snatch last year, And obviously a 1 rep max snatch is not the same as doing 30 snatches for time, but Braun did 295 easily and won it going away in Europe. Aniol had 290, BKG 285. Moritz, Lazar, and Luis Cuellar, who had a nice workout today, were 280. And then there was a huge group of guys at 275, Yella Hoste, Henrik, Fabian, Callum Clements, Jonakowski, and then a bunch of guys at 265 as well. Hoffer last year did 265, and so that's a great question. Is it too heavy for him? I happen to know that it is not. Watching the 2010 games final, crazy how much it changed in rope climbs, toes bar, weightlifting. Yeah, it is fun to go back and watch the old games stuff every once in a while. Maybe not every year like I used to do, but you do get a good perspective on how far things have come. So for the for the men, if I was going to pick an outright winner here, I would go with Branislaw. If you want a little bit more of maybe a fun or a sleeper pick, Aniol, Hoffer, BKG, Moritz, Big, Lazar, Jukic, Luis Cuellar are probably guys that are going to be there. Good thing you never calling it out when they make a mistake. I mean, no one is perfect, and there are definitely those that make sure everyone knows when a mistake is made. If I spent time calling out all of the mistakes that those guys made, we would never talk about anything productive. Anyway, on the women's side, the best snatchers in the field here are Karen Frey and Laura Horvath, but I think Laura Horvath has the capacity and the speed to take this one down. I do think Karen will have a good workout. They both hit 210 last year. Gabby hit 200. I can't even read my writing here. But someone in the field whose name starts with M hit 195. Elisa Fuliana and Linda Kieschman hit 190. Dahlstrom, McQuaid, and Tall 185. Jen Muir 180. And Amy Kringle wasn't. What did Amy Kringle? How come I don't have that note on her anyway? I think she'll be fine. I think that women towards the top are going to do well on this workout. And Claudia Gluck is the one athlete that I'm looking at in the top 10 that needs to have solid execution here. If she nails all her lifts in this, I think Claudia Gluck definitely goes to the games. But I know from talking to athletes who've tested this stuff out that if you start missing 1 or 2 times on that bar, it's not just like a 1 or 2 no rep. It can be 1 to 2 minutes added to your score. The depth of the field here in Europe for the women is not probably as punishing as it is on the men's side, but nevertheless, it's just a tough feeling to be out there at a near maximal effort lift after you've already done 28 snatches and not and miss. And then, if you miss again, that's where things can really start to creep in mentally and affect you. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for athletes to capitalize on clean runs tomorrow, the first 2 workouts, and then hopefully not be an athlete that has it go the other way, but we can almost guarantee that there will be someone, especially on the snatch, that ends up missing that bar a couple times and watching several athletes pass them by. All of this is going to set up a finale that I think is going to be very fun. The closest, I mean, there's always workouts like this at the end of the CrossFit Games semifinals or qualifying stages. And it's good. The one thing that I'm like, there's probably 2 things about, I really like the programming overall. There's probably 2 things about the programming that I don't love. I don't know that we needed to see an echo bike twice in a 6 event test. I think that you could have substituted something in here, like even if it was something like 30 burpees and touch the rig, something that gets you out of breath, that everyone's going to be pretty fast and having to burn it down with. And if it was that, and then I think they're doing ring muscle ups but they did bar muscle ups for the teams, but either way, I just don't know if you need the bike twice in only a 6 workout test. And then I also thought that because there's a weightlifting specific test with the snatch, that the gymnastics could have been emphasized more in one of the workouts. Well, maybe the handstand walking will end up being the critical factor, and I'll negate that statement. But the legless rope climbs were important, but they weren't the entire workout. Even for the women today, I don't think they ended up being the entire workout, and definitely not for the men. And the ring muscle ups here at the end. Again, they'll impact the workout more for the women, but I think maybe like one workout that was a little bit more favorable towards a high skill gymnastics could have been a little bit more well-rounded. Now, overall, I think we're in for a super, super, super exciting finale. And I was thinking of Yeah, just kind of thinking of something here, but I just don't, if you have another idea to replace the bike there, let me know. I don't like having the bike. Yeah, maybe it was a 30 cal ski. I don't know, something like that. 15 ring muscles isn't much for the top. No, for the men, this is going to be unbroken, I think, for almost everybody. And for the women, probably 2 sets for almost everybody. Similarly to the team final, where they only have 20 muscle ups across a 4 round workout, it just seems like the density of the skill there is lacking a little bit compared to what these athletes are certainly capable of. But this is definitely meant to be a sprint workout. Um, I was thinking back to the Lowlands final from 2 years ago. They had bike, bar muscle up, and then overhead squat. Now the overhead squats it was 10 reps at 225 for the men, 155 for the women, I believe, and it was definitely demanding of in a different way than the lunge. I do think that the lunge is going to be a really cool element of finishing this because those dumbbells are heavy, and you are coming off the rings where you're holding on, and like I said, most of the athletes will do them in 1 to 2 sets, and so the grip could certainly play in. It's a trap though because you'd be blowing up on your 6 month up, the bike catching up to you. Yeah, it could potentially be, but I think, Lynn, that like it's unless you are one of these athletes, it's really difficult to put yourself in their shoes and understand what their capacity is. There are athletes even here that will certainly experience that, but some of these, I mean, I'm watching some women today, and they're in like the 4th round of the toes to bar double under front squat workout, and I'm like, they're cruising, like they should be exhausted. And as they walk up to their bar, and I'm thinking like, oh, they're gonna take a break. They just go like this, and they pick it up, and like they are so fit. It's so cool to see, especially when you can be up close in person, but it's really difficult to understand just how good they are. And so even when we think about those things, or even we know the best person at our gym that would experience something like that, a lot of these athletes they're at a different level. They're beyond that for some amazing reasons. So in that workout, Moritz Fiebig punched his ticket to the games for the first time. He came from 8th. He won the workout, and he ended up 4th that weekend. Not everyone who's in this field was in that field, but he's on the cut line, and he's one of those athletes that if he's still on the cut line now, I think he's going to do very well across the day tomorrow and will likely be inside the top 10 before this even happens. But that's a little assurance for Moritz Fiebig that this could probably be a good workout. Scott Schweitzer, I think, interviewed him and asked him, and Scott said, he told Scott, he's like, hey, I told you I didn't want you to ask me that, but the last workout is probably a good workout for me. So he thinks the same. BKG was second at that one. I know someone was asking or saying, I hope BKG pulls it off tomorrow. I think he will. BKG, he's at this point in his career, he's definitely better at the games than he is at semis, but he's still good enough at semis. He just doesn't have a weakness. He's rowing and handstand walking. He's going to be good. Snatch, he's going to be good. And then in the final, obviously, he has a comparable workout where he's good. An average athlete. Yeah, me too. I was talking actually with Don Fall today, and we were watching the toes to bar and the front squat workout, and we were thinking about if we were doing this with the women's weights, that we would probably be doing 5s on toes to bar the whole time, and intentionally splitting the front squats 6-4, 5 or 5-5 from the start. So that is much more normal for people like us, and these guys are not like us. um, Lazar Jukic had a good workout there. I expect he'll have a nice finish again. I still think Lazar is going to end up taking down the championship. Yellow Hoste has looked great, but I think he will struggle on the snatch relative to Lazar, and that'll be enough for Lazar to back up and have another semifinal championship. Fabio Benito was good on that workout, but he hasn't been good enough so far. He's outside of the games contention. I hope that he continues to fight and to do well. He's a super, super awesome dude, very fit guy. I don't think he's 100% health wise. But he did good on that. Enrico Zanoni is another athlete who basically made his name known to the CrossFit world because of that workout back then. He finished 7th. He did those unbroken overhead squats, which was really critical, as some other athletes like Wildis Upanex and Luka Jukic, who he beat by 15 seconds that day, and Luka Vuniak did not do as well. But the lunges are a different story. I do think Zanoni will have a decent workout here, and I still think he's going to be lurking around a game spot. Let's see how the snatches go for him, but I've been impressed with how he looks so far, and I think that he's definitely don't count him out. Others that didn't do that workout that I think will do very well are Hosta, Harry, yeah, Harry Lightfoot, Victor Hoffer, and Sven Jeans. I think it's going to be a bloodbath on the men's side in the final workout. And there's going to be, the thing is, what we talked about on the teams where there were teams on the cut lines that were going for it and selling out in this 11-ish minute workout. On the individual side, the time cap is only 6 minutes. There's going to be a lot of guys that are fighting for podium spots. They want to be on that podium. Then there's going to be a lot of guys that are fighting for game spots. They want to be there. And then there's going to be guys that are just fighting for pride. And I think that similarly to the row handstand, this is just going to be extremely, extremely tight. And it's going to be a fun finish. The lunge finish always yields some kind of drama anyway. And again, you know, make sure that you stand that last rep up before you drop the dumbbells or whatever they're briefed to do, because I can guarantee you, mark it down right now, an hour and 19 minutes and 55 seconds into this, somebody tomorrow is going to be in a lunge race. They're going to try to stand it up and they're going to not extend their hips all the way, and they're going to get called back. Let's see here. Is Kosi injured? From what I hear, he isn't, but he doesn't look like himself. I have not heard anything about an injury for Yona Koski. But yeah, he's had one good workout, one decent workout, and two bad workouts, and it's not normal from what we're used to seeing from him. There's basically a documentary series following him this season called Chasing the Podium, and right now, I don't think that. I mean, it says 22% chance to make the games. We're only at the 50% mark. It's not that I don't think Yona can have a good day of competition. It's just that I think that it's too many good guys ahead of him, and I don't know what that's going to do, but. When I first, this is what we can, really can keep in mind. And I think we probably should put the leaderboard back up to talk about this, because it's just a good talking point. Right now, at the top of the leaderboard, we have Yelahosi, 267 points. If Yona were to have similar performance to that and have 267 points, then he would have 377 points total. And on the cut line right now is 185. 387 is 202 points more than 185. So then what does it look like to get 200 points? Well, right here, a fourth, a 34th, and a second. So if that was a lot of numbers for you at one time, basically what I'm saying is it's not impossible. And what Barkley has said here, that there's a 22% chance that he makes it, makes sense, Sarah Cooper, mathematically. He has to have 3 good workouts. Jake Chapman, you're always throwing me for a loop. I have a question that I ask people all the time. It's if you could choose any 3 workouts from the CrossFit Games to have as a test, which would you choose? And I would choose the Burden Run, Strongman Sphere. Those would probably be my top 2 answers to your pick. And then the standard. I actually hope that they reprogram the standard at some point with a full field there, but those would probably be the 3 answers to your question right off the cuff. Tomorrow is going to be crazy. It's going to be super fun. I want to see. I have one more start. Oh no, this is just Melanie buying me a chocolate croissant and a coffee. The best, even though she's not here anymore. She's watching hockey. Okay. Chaos. Not a bad answer. True, but I also think the heats are placed and have an impact. He was in the last heat. He thought he was winning. In faster heats, you go a lot faster. Yes and no. I mean, Claudia Gluck had a 3rd place finish out of a second heat today, where no one else was within 12 total spots of her on the leaderboard. Nice, Kevin. Yeah, if I'm looking at the men's leaderboard here of the guys in the top, I think that actually we didn't really look at this. Here's my picks for the men. So obviously Yona is a huge miss right here relative to what's going on right now. Lazar looks great. Henrik looks great. I don't think BKG will finish 4th, but I do think he'll make the games. Yella is doing a little better than I had projected here. Anjol is inside the top 10 currently. Moritz is outside, but I think he's looking good. Wildis needs to hit all his snatches, and I think he'll be fine for the games. Luka Jukic is literally in 9th place right now. Victor Hoffer, I think Victor Hoffer has a chance to win both of the first 2 workouts tomorrow. I won't say that maybe he'll get like 3rd. I think he could win the handstand walk, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has 2 top 5s. That's going to put him right back into the mix going into the final. Braun is probably on the outside looking in. Wesolowski is absolutely in the conversation. I think Maizaradze, I overshot him a little bit here. Bosshard is outperforming. Benito and Liliorg are underperforming. Catullus is still in the mix. Briand is still in the mix. Vuniak is in the mix, and Lightfoot is in the mix. So of the top 20, Koski, Maizaradze, Benito and Liliorg, those four are probably out. Everybody else here, I think, still has a fighting chance if we flip over to the leaderboard. There's Bossart and Harry Lightfoot doing great. Vuniak is doing very well, but he's a big time up and down guy. I think he'll do well on handstand walk row. I think he'll really struggle on the snatch, and I think he'll have about a 10th to 15th on the final, and that's going to put him right on the cut line. Michael Smith and Fernando Geneza so far doing better than I projected. I think Mickey Smith will stay in the conversation. I don't think he's going to make the games, but I think he's going to be in the top 15. I think Geneza will slide down huge with the snatch, and he'll be okay on the other two, and will ultimately miss a game spot. Zanoni is doing a little better than I had expected. I still think Sven Jeans is sneaky, and Catullus is probably the guy, if I had to just grant a wish and have it come true of an athlete to make the CrossFit Games, that I would pick. Oh, I'm sorry, Melanie. I had to get my son ready for his game. Totally acceptable. Totally acceptable. So that's hour and 25 minutes. If you came in late, I'm sure that maybe there's some other people going live. I'm really just trying to stay focused on what I'm doing. I love this sport. I love these athletes. I love this semifinal. It's been really, really great to be here. Congratulations to the 8 teams that made the CrossFit Games. I think I spent the first maybe 15 to 20 minutes talking about them. It's a Nordic domination, Scandinavian sweep, 8 teams with mostly athletes from 3 countries making it to the games, which is incredible. Hats off to those coaches, athletes, programs that have made their season, made it to the last part of the season. Tomorrow we're going to see 10 men and 10 women go to the CrossFit Games. I think PC will probably go live like he did the other day, probably on Instagram from Asia. He's over there having an incredible time. He said he is blown away by the crowd. They are cheering like for all the athletes. They're buying all the vendor village stuff. We have some friends in Asia that he and I have met over the years. He's getting to catch up with some of them. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that, brother. We have some really good friends who are in China that are actually there streaming to the Chinese platform so that the Chinese contingency of CrossFitters can watch. There's a competition that happens in China every year. It runs like 6 months and ends in a Chinese championship, but they're just so isolated from everything else. Ant Haynes and Ed Haynes are there. Ant Haynes is currently sitting in 5th place. We can flip over to the Asian leaderboard real quick because it doesn't take too much to talk about it. Kalashnikov team punched their tickets to the games. It looks really close here on paper, but if you look, they beat this team by 4 minutes, 15 points, 3 minutes. They lost to them by 10 seconds, and then they beat them by 90 seconds here. So it's almost a clean sweep. Kalashnikov team will be like middle pack at the games. Marvel Black was dead last, I believe, last year at the games, and then there was a big drop off from there. So that makes sense to me that they only get 1 spot. And it went to the team that we expected. On the women's side, or the men's side, it's all Russia. I'm sure probably won't be any flags or anything, but 4 Russian guys at the top, and then Ant, another Russian guy here, another Russian guy here, and Morteza Sadadkat is not doing very well. I think he's down here in 17th. PC said he was really struggling. I'm not sure what that means, but Ivan Kukartsev, Tommy Hackenbrook actually still coaches this guy. He was on the team. I don't think there's an English read now. He was on the team that trained with underdogs that 1 year for Kalashnikov team when they were working with him, and he stayed with Tommy Hackenbrook. I believe I picked him 2nd. He's sitting in 1st. He's only got a small lead over Ilyas Kuliev, and they look pretty solid there as of now. But again, 3 workouts to go, so anything could happen. I think PC will go live tomorrow. He said Artur wasn't looking the best, but I still would be nervous if I was these guys about Artur. He's just experienced. He's really good at snatching and rowing. And I think that he's going to have a great day tomorrow. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he has 3 more top 5 finishes and ends up getting back into a fight. I would still go with Kukartsev and Semenov on the men's side. And on the women's side, I don't honestly have any idea how they ended up with an extra spot to the CrossFit Games. Thanks for the updates. Asia teams are crushing it. The energy revive is unbelievable. Sehir Kaya and Sungyoung Choi here are 3 points apart. They've been 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 1st, 5th, 1st. So they've won all the events. And then there's a big drop off here. These performances are, first of all, you can't even consider this relevant because of the way that the running course was. And these performances are, Sahara did not do great on event 2, but these other performances are good, and they're even decent within Europe. Look at the drop off here. Look at the drop off here. It's And, I don't know. Dawan Jung had a great workout, but I absolutely think that whoever finishes 11th on the women's side for the Europeans is substantially better. I don't think these athletes even would have qualified for the semifinals over there. And the system that's been rolled out here in the last week or two is confusing to me. I don't love it. But they do get 3 spots, and therefore we want to focus in on these 3 athletes. These are the 3 athletes that we thought would be on the bubble spot, but we have to add in a couple more Russians. We had said it in our preview that when the Russian women show up and compete, they always kind of surprise. Omer Rashif, who we talked about, a young athlete, 23 years old, is not out of the mix. So I would say from 3 all the way down to 8 is going to be a fun battle tomorrow. One of them will be going to the CrossFit Games. My pick was Donanova. I don't know why that Patrick and I always struggle with that one. But Evie Hollis obviously has a ton of experience, and Dawan Zhang is the local. She got the local crowd on her side. So this is going to be a super fun battle for the 3rd spot, even though I think that 2 would have been enough. It's fun, fun to see who's going to take it. So probably call it there. Go do a little prep for tomorrow, get some sleep. Action starts at 9 a.m. local time. Once again, 3 workouts for the men, 3 workouts for the women, 20 total spots to the CrossFit Games coming out of Europe. And I'll come back and actually some of these guys we do know can get to the U.S. I'm not entirely sure about the women, but Kukartsev absolutely can. Semenov absolutely can. So, and that is my biggest hope, Sarah, honestly, is that whoever qualifies from Asia actually gets to the U.S. T-Bird, I don't know if I already clicked on this one. Thanks for the updates. You're awesome. Always here supporting us. So I'll come back on tomorrow night, same time, 8 o'clock local time, 2 o'clock in the East Coast. I think it's right. 2 o'clock in the East Coast, 11 o'clock Pacific, and talk about some of the notes that I saw on the competition floor. I know that on the broadcast, you're getting Chase and Lucy. I think I haven't listened to any of it, but Lucy did a great job last year. And I would just say this, I think they featured Amy Kringle in the final heat for both of the workouts today. And I don't understand that. There's only 2 workouts. There's only 2 final heats. There's 10 amazing women on the floor featuring the same athlete twice in one day. Seems a little silly to me. But other than that, I'm sure they're doing well. Lucy knows her stuff. Chase obviously is super experienced, but they don't, the broadcasts cannot always show everything that's on the floor. So I'll make some notes. I'll try to identify some athletes who have some good performances, always trying to celebrate even the athletes that aren't going to make the games, like Franzi Hogar, Luis Cuellar, Callum Clements that had a really good day today, or a really good workout. And yeah, tomorrow will be the last day here in Lyon. And I'll see you guys on Instagram. I'll put my picks up on Instagram stories, probably event by event. Lucy is doing great. They are doing great. Chase and Lucy are doing well. Love to hear that. They're both great people. I haven't seen Lucy yet. Maybe I should go sneak up there and say hi to her tomorrow. Anyway, and then I'll be back on here tomorrow night, hopefully hanging with you guys. So thank you for all the love and support. I hope you guys are enjoying the coverage. There's so many good athletes here, good teams, and good people. So happy to bring it to you, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay friendly, our friends.